Mike Drolin with Global National News. My question's for the broadcasters. This year, TSN's spending roughly $40 million for the NHL. Next year, from what I understand in the deal, it's going to be over $300 million. And in my basic math skills, that works out to roughly 8 times what they're paying this year. So my question is for Mr. Mohamed and Mr. Pelly, is how do you rationalize spending that much more? And can you make money on this property considering how much more you're spending than TSN is this year? And for Monsieur Lacroix, is there enough on the bone? Is there enough left on the bone for CBC to continue making money on Hockey Night in Canada?
So let me kick it off with the answer, and then Hubert, I'll pass it over to you. But I want to start with the strategic rationale for doing this. It's really important from a Rogers perspective. In a world where content becomes increasingly important for distribution companies, we've had a focus on sports for the last few years. I talked about the investments we've made, whether it's the Jays, the MLSC investment, SCORE, regional rights to hockey. So really this is, in some ways, the icing on the cake. It fills out hockey. It gives us rights that have never been granted before. And let me start from just from a business perspective, your question around does this make sense economically? Categorically, this is positive for shareholders at Rogers. So if you want from a financial point of view, it's positive from a net present value perspective. But importantly, if you look at the Rogers media business, we would look at this deal as being accretive right from the get-go from an operating income perspective. And so it's a financially good deal for us. But beyond that, it connects us to people, to our brands resonate in the community. Fans will get choice like never before. And so this is important for Canadians. And one of the things that we're really proud of is, look, we all grew up with certain institutions and brands that come to mind. So the ability to partner was a key part of our deal. Obviously, some of the rights are now shared, including the costs. But importantly, as part of this arrangement, we reached out and worked with the CBC to ensure that Canadians will get access to Hockey Night in Canada the way they had before. I think that's great. It's great, I believe, for CBC. I believe it's great for all of us as Canadians. Working with TVA, it allowed us to also share the rights. So I see this as a very collaborative effort. So the costs in that sense are shared. But importantly, this is a great deal for us, and I believe great deal for fans. So Hubert, maybe I'll pass it on to you.
From a CBC point of view, as you heard, and when you look at the numbers that were in the Rogers press release this morning, Rogers takes on all of the revenues from all the properties. They control this for the numbers that they've paid. It's pretty normal. We have no cost that come with that, so we don't pay any broadcasting rights. Our friends at Rogers pick up all of the revenue. We think that the ability to still have Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday is something important to us. It's something that not only did Rogers but the NHL recognized, and that's what we get out of this, the ability to continue to promote some of our programs through the iconic Hockey Night in Canada evening, and also to be able to be a position from which you're going to be able to watch hockey on a whole bunch of platforms, Rogers platform, Rogers assets, and we will, through our Hockey Night in Canada brand, I hope lift the interest of Canadians in that environment.
Okay. My name is Paul Bagnall. I'm with Business News Network. My question is for Commissioner Bettman.
You keep this one, okay?
I can hear without. Thank you. Commissioner, can you confirm that this was, in fact, an auction process for these rights? Can you give us any sense of the duration and intensity of that auction process? And are you able to confirm that Bell Media was, in fact, an unsuccessful participant in this process?
I don't think I want to do much of any of that. I think it's more important that we all understand that this is an agreement, a partnership that we're proud of and we're looking forward to. TSN did a terrific job carrying hockey. We have nothing but good feelings of goodwill for the people at TSN, and it's always tough to lose a partner in a property. But as we looked forward, we concluded that for the rights that we had, the rights that Rogers was seeking, that this relationship made the most sense and that we were the most comfortable with. It's not always just about the money in a very complicated negotiation. Everything that goes around with respect to rights and partnership is equally important. And the good news is there was a lot of interest, but we are very pleased with where this turned out.
Hi, my name's Aaron. I'm from Omni News. This is kind of a general question, but are there any plans right now or in the future to broadcast in any other languages, like Punjabi, for example?
I'm just going to hand it to Keith, but this is really important to set the stage. Absolutely.
Any comments?
There you go. I would say that this is day one of a 12-year partnership. We're in the infancy stages of planning our production, our programming, our scheduling. Over the next coming months, we will enter into some serious meetings where we will discuss all of that, including Omni. Omni is a key network for us. I think it was Scott Moore when he was at CBC brought some different languaging programming. So it's something that we will definitely consider and give full evaluation. What that is, that really is the magic of this arrangement, this partnership, is the flexibility. And, you know, I don't think you can compare this to any other rights deal that has been done in the past regarding the National Hockey League. For the first time, a premium sports league in North America has sold their exclusive rights to one entity. That was the National Hockey League, looking for a partner that would grow the game. So you can't compare it to the rights that have been in the past, and the flexibility that allows us to evaluate such opportunities as carrying the games in many different languages is just a benefit of this deal.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, Tom Hayes from City News and The Five. I'm going to ask the question that I've been asked the most this morning. What happens to that fancy guy in the suit, Mr. Don Cherry?
Well, I would answer that question the same way that I answered the previous question. This is day one of a 12-year partnership, but it is a partnership both with the National Hockey League and with CBC. So over the next months and years, we will evaluate all facets of our production and our programming, certainly in consultation with CBC regarding Hockey Night in Canada. So at this particular time, we're just celebrating today the rights that we have acquired and not really have thought of it much more than just that, to be honest.
Steve Laterante from the Globe and Mail. Could you provide a little more detail on how you plan to monetize this over the years besides selling commercials? What's the longer-term plan for how you make money on this?
Sure. As I said, this is a deal that you can't compare to any other deal based on the fact that it is a multi-platform rights deal. And we're in an era of gargantuan change as technology changes almost daily. It certainly will follow very much of the consortium model that was successful in generating quite a bit of revenue in terms of some 4 times any revenue in Vancouver. And that is obviously selling all of the commercial inventory, but not just on linear platforms, on multiple platforms. But once again, Steve, this here is day one. We've looked at this obviously from a Rogers Media perspective, but being part of such a powerful telco with cable and wireless assets, you can bet that over the next coming months there will be a lot of boardrooms filled with strategic ways of how we can look at all of the rights and both bring the coverage to Canadians more, but as well generate revenue for our shareholders.
As it relates to the last 2 questions, let me try and add a little bit of color on both. From a league standpoint, from an NHL club standpoint, from the standpoint of our fans, what we tried to do with this arrangement was ensure that our games would be carried into the future as technology is changing with the most number of options, whether or not it's over-the-air TV, whether or not it's cable, whether or not it's streaming, whether or not it's on mobile. The thought being, and you've seen the broadcasting media environment change so dramatically over the last few years, nobody's exactly sure what the world's going to look like over the next decade, let alone the next 12 years. We wanted a relationship where we and our partner would have the flexibility to move among platforms because people, particularly of varying ages, are consuming their entertainment differently than they ever did before and differently by age. People my age, still rely on a big screen TV. Our kids, my grandkids, are watching on tablets and on phones, and we wanted to ensure that our fans would have access to our games no matter what platform they were interested in or what platform may develop. I mean, we may be looking at things in the course of this deal that don't currently exist. When somebody says, in response to a question, well, it's the first day and we're looking at it, that's the right, appropriate response, but for some people hearing it, that may sound a little ominous. Don Cherry is a great talent and a good friend, and obviously it's somebody who we take very seriously as part of the game, and ultimately it's something we'll discuss, but I didn't want anybody to take Keith's very well said comment to somehow represent the sword of Damocles, because I don't think it was that.
No, that would be definitely accurate. I would also say that when the one thing I would say going forward, and the 12 years is critical, and in this, like I said, changing environment, compelling content that resonates with consumers, that it's available on multiple platforms and on any device, that's when you're going to be successful. And unequivocally, we have the most coveted content in Canada, the most compelling content, which is the NHL National Package. And it really bodes well for all of RCI going forward.
It's a big day when Bob McCown shuttled up to the balcony. Can't even get down here. We have a microphone up top. We'll go to a question there.
Question à M. Lacroix et M. Despatie. Radio-Canada va perdre beaucoup de revenus publicitaires avec la perte du contrôle de Hockey Night in Canada. Quel va être l'avenir de cette mesure-là sur le service des sports et les travailleurs? Et question à M. Despatie, le Canadien, il y aura 22 matchs à TVA Sport, mais il y a une soixantaine de matchs qui restent. Comment ça va être réparti? Est-ce qu'on peut penser que TVA, RDS est encore dans le portrait?
Alors je vais répondre à la question. Il y a un équilibre dans ce que vous avez entendu ce matin. CBC Radio-Canada ne paie rien, paie $0 pour les droits de diffusion. Et en retour de ça, c'est Rogers qui prend le contrôle de l'inventaire et de la publicité sur nos ondes. Donc, oui, évidemment, il y a perte de revenus, mais il y a évidemment une économie de dépenses qui sont associées à ça. Ça, c'est le modèle d'affaires pour nous et c'est la raison pour laquelle nous sommes ici en train de vous expliquer qu'il y a une relation d'affaires, un partnership avec les gens de Rogers. Do you want me to repeat this in English? It's the same answer I gave, frankly, a few minutes ago, where the business model for the public broadcaster is that, yes, there's no revenue now coming out of Hockey Night in Canada for us, but in the same way, there's no rights fee. We are not paying anything for that content. So that's the way, when you look at the pros and cons and the pluses and the minuses of this transaction and how we hope that this is a relationship that starts with Rogers that can actually be something more than simply hockey. We like being strategic with other partners. This is how the public broadcaster sees itself in the future. And whether it's a Rogers, whether it's another broadcaster, whether it's another partner for a signature event, this is how CBC Radio-Canada needs to go forward. Partnerships of this kind with the quality of the people that I'm sitting with today.
Go ahead, Dan Lowe.
Sorry.
Je vais répondre à la question. Écoutez, l'entente que Rogers a signée avec la Ligue nationale de 5,2 milliards de dollars inclut 82 matchs. Donc, dans l'entente, nous avons la possibilité d'avoir 82 matchs. 22 matchs sont garantis, ainsi que, comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, les matchs des séries éliminatoires. Les 60 matchs qui demeurent resteront entre une entente à arriver dans le futur entre le Canadien et la Ligue nationale. Donc, pour le moment, comme je l'ai dit, nous avons 22 matchs de garantie. Les 60 autres vont dépendre de l'entente entre les Canadiens de Montréal et la Ligue nationale.
Stephen D'Souza from CBC for the Rogers folks. I think a lot of viewers and people at home and already on Twitter are asking, will your attempts to generate revenue be passed on to the consumers, and does this open the door for pay-per-view hockey?
Thanks. There's obviously no direct relationship between what we just announced and the issue of pricing. But I think, to be fair, one of the things that we're all looking forward to is offering Canadians more choice, more flexibility. And that leads to the whole industry question of, I'll call it a la carte, moving towards a pick and pay. It's a world we're very supportive of, but frankly, a world that will evolve over time. So I think it's a little premature to start thinking about how exactly that world will shape up. But it's a world that ultimately consumers will define, and we hope that we can do this in a way that supports that desire.
And pay-per-view hockey?
I think if you look at the world going forward, and remember this is a 12-year deal, it's really important that we don't get caught up with legacy kinds of thoughts. The way pricing works, the way pay-per-view, a la carte, pick and pay, those will evolve over time, and I think the key thing to go back to is offering more Canadians more choice over time.
Back down here. Down here? Yeah.
Mr. Bettman, I was wondering if you could comment on the concussion lawsuit, and if you're worried about over the coming years, and I know this is a good news day for you, so it's sort of probably not what you want to talk about, but are you worried over the coming years as this lawsuit sort of progresses, as it did with the NFL, providing a black eye for the NHL?
I'm going to answer this question now, but this media avails really for another purpose, and when we're done, to the extent Bill Daly or I are comfortable answering any questions with pending litigation, we'll see you afterwards. The fact is, we believe that this is a lawsuit without merit, and as Bill said in the statement we issued last night, we intend to vigorously defend it. We've been extraordinarily proactive on the whole issue of player safety, and I think our record in that regard speaks volumes.
Back to the balcony.
Gary, this is for you. I know you don't want to get into the details of the bid and how it all came together, but at the bottom line here, what was it that made this deal the best one for you? I mean, it sounds like they backed a Brinks truck up to the NHL headquarters and priced everybody else out of the game. Is that what it was, and is that what's best for the NHL?
It's never just about price. It's about the grant of rights. It's about how the games are going to be distributed, scheduled, and produced. And it was an overall comfort level based on the circumstances as we found them. I think the Rogers people should be commended both for their aggressiveness and the strategy with which they approached us. And this is something that came together very, very quickly.
Down here.
Tammy Sutherland, City News. Just wondering if there's any thought given yet to how the Stanley Cup playoffs and finals will be divvied up between Sportsnet and CBC. And also for CBC, wondering what this means long-term for employees who are working on Hockey Night in Canada and directly with hockey as it stands.
Well, I'll pass it over to Hubert. The plan is to have the Stanley Cup Finals on CBC. Our goal is to get maximum reach to Canadians. That is obviously the way that is best for consumers as well as for us to drive revenue. If in fact a Canadian team was to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, it wouldn't be out of the question that, similar to what happened in the gold medal game in Vancouver in 2010, when we simulcast that game on 11 different networks and broadcasted it in 22 different languages, we would certainly look at that option. But our plan is to have the finals on CBC.
With respect to the resources of CBC Radio-Canada and how they are affected, the intention is that Rogers will tap into our technical resources for the production of CBC's, for the production of Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday nights. We'll see whether that does anything for the other evenings and whether they need us or would like to use some, again, of our technical abilities. They are going to be responsible for revenue, so there's an impact there. We'll see how we can, again, match the needs that are created by this partnership for Rogers with some of the resources that we have, again, in trying to make sure that this is the best deal for everybody that you're looking at right now.
David?
Question for Gary. Trying not to look so enthused. Now that you're going to have this pantload of money coming in for... Good to see you, too. Now that you're going to have all this money coming in from Canada, is it time for the governors to sit down and think about expansion? Maybe a team in Quebec and elsewhere? That'd sort of goose your ratings, too.
It's not something that we're embarking on a formal process. As you know, we've had expressions of interest from a number of places, but it's not something, as I sit here today, I can tell you we have any intention of addressing in the short term.
First of all, hello everyone, and for French and English for Mr. Despatie from TVA Sports and TVA Group. First of all, in French as well as in English, how is it for a young TV station, TVA Sports, 2.5 years, to be integrated in that huge deal, and as well, how does it add to the whole process of multi-platform in Québécois Group? So, quel est l'impact d'abord pour une jeune station comme TVA Sport et ensuite, évidemment, dans tout le groupe québécois relativement aux multiples plateformes? Thank you very much. Merci.
Évidemment, c'est un sommet absolument, une entente historique. Vous pouvez comprendre que pour une chaîne qui est âgée seulement de 2 ans, les droits de la Ligue nationale, étant le diffuseur officiel francophone de la Ligue nationale de hockey, c'est vraiment excitant et ça nous permet aussi de pouvoir offrir un contenu absolument exceptionnel à notre clientèle. Donc les gens à TVA Sport sont vraiment, vraiment très enthousiastes. Deuxième des choses, évidemment, notre stratégie, comme vous le savez, au Québec, est une stratégie de convergence de technologie. Nous avons l'intention de vraiment se concentrer sur une offre absolument exceptionnelle, de faire vivre la meilleure expérience possible sur le multiplateforme, l'ensemble de nos produits. Donc, ça fait partie vraiment de nos stratégies. I was just saying that, I mean, obviously, we've been 2 years old, TVA Sports, so it's exciting time for us. Quite exciting, quite frankly, because it was, as I said in my speech, really a dream come true. We're proud to be the official Francophone sponsor, or what do you call it, broadcaster, partner of Rogers and the AHL. And so, and part of our biggest strategy in Quebec was the multi-platform. We've been extremely aggressive in terms of making sure that we offer the best experience possible to our customers on every single product we have available. So we're going to do the same thing and even greater than we have been doing it for the last 2 or 3 years.
Back to the balcony.
Hi, it's Jonathan Gatehouse from Maclean's Magazine. Gary, you mentioned this came together very quickly, and I know Keith had said that he had had very little sleep over the last night. I was just wondering if you could expand upon that. And then the second question I had was about the branding of Hockey Night in Canada. I know that that will continue on all the Rogers platforms, but is it going to be branded as a Rogers Hockey Night in Canada going forward?
I know you. You hawking any books while we're here? I think the comment about how the negotiations went was they were very recent and in a very short period of time that this all came together. And that is, in large measure, an element of what gave us a great deal of comfort about this partnership. In a matter of days, we came to an understanding, drafted a detailed term sheet. Keith and his team were able to work with the CBC and TVA. It's actually, I think, remarkable and a testament to Rogers at how quickly this all came together.
Back down here.
Oh, hi.
Wasn't there a second question? There was, and I was asking about the branding of Hockey Night Canada going forward.
Yes. Yes, the branding. The branding of Hockey Night in Canada was imperative in all of our conversations with CBC. It's such a strong, iconic brand. As Canadians, we should all be proud of that. And in discussions with Jeffrey and Neil and Hubert, the gracious offer to take the brand and to expand it, i.e., if you looked at the past weekend, you might have seen the Montreal Canadiens on Hockey Night in Canada on CBC. You might have seen the Toronto Maple Leafs on Hockey Night in Canada on City, and you would see the Ottawa Senators potentially as Hockey Night in Canada on Sportsnet. What this will do will expand the Hockey Night in Canada brand across all the platforms. And again, when you look at two conventionals now carrying Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday, it just bodes really well for the consumers to get two over-the-airs carrying two national games. So it's very exciting. And you're right, I haven't had a lot of sleep, but that's okay. There's more time for that.
Hi. I'm Cassandra Sklarski from the Canadian Press. I actually had the same question about Hockey Night in Canada, and maybe Hubert, you can add your comments into how that, what your views are on sharing that broadcast on the same night. There will be two other simultaneous broadcasts then with the same format essentially. And I know, Keith, you said you're still developing, I guess, what that would look
so I'll
like.
give you very clarity and on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday nights. The goal will be to carry all the games on Saturday. So in the past there has been, depending upon the schedule, but there's been regional games. Our goal is to take all the games nationally, both U.S. and Canadian games. So there will definitely be, and depending upon what Saturday night you look at it, but if you look at last week, CBC would definitely have gotten a premier game on the early, would have done the Canucks at late. City would have done another game. Sportsnet would have done another game. Sportsnet 1 would have done another game. Sportsnet 360 would have done another game. So you can see the plethora of outlets that we have to give consumers just an unbelievable offering on Saturday. So Hockey Night in Canada will go through all our platforms in what is a real true partnership for both networks and the fans.
Well, while I have you, then can I ask you also about Grapes then? Like, could he be appearing then on those other networks?
Sure. Absolutely. All people can appear on all networks. It is very similar to when we go back to if you look at that model of the consortium, and I think it was the legendary Bob McCowan that called that the unholy alliance when TSN and Sportsnet came together for the Olympics. But very quickly, when you had a common goal, and we all have a common goal here, which is to build the game, stars like Don Cherry could appear on 7 different networks. Absolutely, similar to what happened in Vancouver. My comment would be the same as the commissioners. Is Don is an iconic Canadian, and the CBC personalities that they have, from Jim Houston to Bob Cole, are all legends. We haven't even started the discussion regarding editorial with CBC, but the idea is that the content and all of the profiles of the athletes and all the stories will go across all the networks.
But Hubert, it sounds like CBC has lost Don as an ambassador for you guys. Do you want to comment on that?
I don't think it sounds like anything yet. As Keith says, we all love and respect Don, and they're going to have to figure out what is best going forward. I think, and Keith hit it right, but let's take a step back. I think it's helpful if everybody tries to stop viewing this through traditional glasses, where the CBC, for example, on Saturday night would regionalize games, and depending on where you were geographically, that would be the game you would get. Think more about the evolution of the Olympics, that if curling's going on at the same time as ski jumping, as the same time as cross-country skiing, they would be on different networks, and you as a fan could watch what you want. So if there are 4 or 5 games on Saturday night at the same time, no matter where you are in Canada, you can flip between games. You can stay on the game that you're most interested in. If one game gets out of hand and another game's going into overtime, you can watch that. That's why we've been saying this is so pro-fan, because we're going to give the fans more options than they've ever had to consume NHL hockey.
So does this make the traditional center ice package in Canada obsolete?
No, not at all. The center ice package is something that we've had preliminary discussions during this entire process. We haven't emphatically made any decision. Not every game will be televised. I think that would be impossible with even the amount of networks that we have. So there will definitely be a center ice package. What that looks like going forward, Darren, is something that we will discuss over the coming months with the league and with Scott and his team as well.
We do have 1,230 regular season games, and some of them involve teams south of here.
I've heard. There's a couple. Most are coming back, though, right? Up top?
You now have to play nice.
I know. So it's going to take some getting used to, okay?
Well, you better get used to it quick.
I would concur with that.
Which with?
Hi, Susan Krasinski from the Globe and Mail. You've spoken about the importance of the multi-platform design of this deal. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to the sales strategy on advertising sales and how you plan to generate the kind of revenue that will justify this investment. I'm also wondering whether there's a strategic opportunity there to offer some exclusive content to some of your Rogers subscribers.
Both very, very good questions. I know this is probably the third or fourth time that I've mentioned it, but having had the privilege of being part of what was a really special consortium in Vancouver, to run the Olympic consortium with the likes of CTV, TSN, Omni, Sportsnet, the Aboriginal Television Network, and we had a very successful sales model that worked, and we will follow that. We will spend a tremendous amount of time with the NHL partners, learning what their objectives are, spending time with all the current NHL partners on our regional broadcasts, and move into a very, very defined revenue model that really works and allows the partners to optimize and to activate their brands in the best way. And that's really exciting for us. And it certainly worked really well in Vancouver. When you actually look at the advertising in Vancouver, was more than 4 times in any other Olympic Games, and even in London was more than double any other. And I think CBC is kind of taking a little bit of that model in Sochi under the guidance of Alan Dark. So I think we changed the model there. And in terms of from Rogers customers, so forth, there is lots of discussion and there is lots of ideas and concepts, but that's what they are right now, ideas and concepts. Which ones will actually be activated and put into reality will be discussions that will happen over the coming months.
Just to add to the last point that Keith made, I think it will be helpful for everybody to understand the way we see it in terms of a broad platform. I'll make a statement that will inform how we view this going forward, and that is, I truly believe the more iconic the content, the more you want every Canadian to have the opportunity to access it. That's what drives us in terms of how we frame what product and what service gets offered. And the maximizing the reach is a key part of the platform that we're building.
Time for 2 more on the floor.
Hi, Steve Laterante from the Globe and Mail. I was going to ask you to elaborate on the blackout stuff, but that little exchange kind of inspired me to ask about, now that you're not only the biggest big deal broadcaster of NHL games, you're one of the largest media companies in the country. What direction do you give to your editorial staff to ensure that you're able to cover it fairly and objectively when you have so much at stake financially?
Well, I don't think that, Stephen, you change any of your philosophy in terms of your journalistic integrity depending upon how big you are. I look at we run some of the biggest magazines in Canada, in the likes of Maclean's and Canadian Business and Money Sense, and using Maclean's as a perfect example, the number one thing is maintaining journalistic integrity. We are partners with the National Hockey League. We want to grow the stars. We want to focus on the stars of the game. We want to grow the game at every level. But we will always maintain a high degree of journalistic integrity across all platforms with the National Hockey League as well.
And we would insist on nothing less. While we'll have discussions about the presentation of games and production values, our fans want authenticity. We've never controlled the coverage of our game, which is obvious by some of the treatment. So that won't change at all.
We'll exchange numbers later.
I think we already have them, and it doesn't make a difference.
Go ahead.
Sean Fitzgerald, National Post. This might be a silly question, but I'll ask it anyway. CBC after 4 years, is that just the sort of where the Stanley Cup Final goes after 4 years is in question, or CBC along for the whole length of the term?
Currently, right now, we have a 4-year deal with CBC. We will continue to build the partnership, to be honest with you, beyond hockey, and we hope that CBC is our partner for Hockey Night in Canada for many years to come.
Sorry, just one point of clarification. So that's the whole deal. That's not just the finals. That's everything CBC's on for 4 years.
That's correct.